With CSS 3, you can create shadows, and this will open up a new door of effects that we could not have before. You can add shadows using two properties. You have the box shadow property and the text shadow property. Let's start off with the box shadow property. This property will allow you to add shadows to a box. Let's see how we can do it. So I will type in box shadow and I will add these values that I will explain later on. And now when we preview the result, we can see that our box has a shadow. Now let's go back to the box shadow property and explain what we have here. The first value is for the horizontal offset, and this value is required. If you use a positive value, this means that the shadow will be on the right of the box. You can use bigger values or smaller values to create different shadows. And if you give it a negative value, this will make the shadow on the left of the box. So let's try a negative value here. Great. So a positive value makes it on the right side and a negative value makes it on the left side. Now let's move to the second value. The second value is for the vertical offset and it is also required. If you use a positive value, the shadow will be below the box. And if you use a negative value, the shadow will be above the box. And of course, you can use bigger or smaller values to create different shadows. Now let's move to the third value. This value is for the blur radius and it is also required. If you set it to 0, the shadow will be sharp. And the higher the number you use here, the more blurred the shadow will be. Let's try different values so we can see the effects that it can have on the shadow. Great. The fourth value is optional and it is for the spread radius. Positive values increase the size of the shadow and negative values decrease the size of the shadow. And if you don't set it, you still have the shadow. That's because by default it is set to 0. And finally, the last value is for the color. You can use any color that you like here to create different shadow colors. Now if you want to have inner shadows, you can use this inset keyword and you will have inner shadows. With this property, you can set different shadows at the same time. You just separate them with a comma. So let's do it. Let's add another one. And another one. Great. Now let's move to the text shadow property. This property works just like the box shadow property, but it will be applied to text, not to boxes. So let's target this text and add a text shadow to it. Great.